Hello and welcome to Perfect Glamour Fashion. In today's tutorial, we're going to be learning how to make this princess that bustier blouse with built up collar neckline. It's also called a high neckline. Today's tutorial is a continuation of our last tutorial where we learned how to cut this pattern. Okay, so today we're going to be learning how to sew it. So stay tuned. Alright, so in our previous tutorial we learned how to cut this pattern. Okay, so if you've not seen that tutorial, go ahead and see it before you come for the sewing. Okay, I've gone ahead to cut out my pattern with my fabric, and I used 1/2 inch sewing allowance for the joining part, and but the side I used 2 inches sewing allowance. Okay, so and I've gone ahead to notch. I notched the lines. Go ahead and notch your lines. You'll be needing it in your joining when you are joining. Okay, so this is the center piece and the side. This is the center front and the side. This one of the side front. Remember, it's 1 center front and 2 side fronts. Okay, so I've pinned the parts that I notched. This is going to help me in when I'm sewing to make sure that it doesn't, one side is not connected wrongly to the other side. Okay, so I'm going to pin the underbust of both the center and the side and the half length of both the center and the side, and I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I will sew, and if I have an allowance I can cut it out. Okay, I'm doing the same thing for the back. For the back, this is the center back and this is the side back. I'm pinning it together at the half length. Okay, so you can also, if you're a beginner, go ahead and pin it all the way up before you go to the sewing machine. This is going to make your work easier for you, I assure you. Okay, so don't just pin it one place just the way I did. Just pin it all the way down, then you go ahead and sew. Alright, so I'm done sewing. I'm done piecing the fronts together, as you can see. Now I went ahead to notch. Remember, whatever you do for the fabric, you do the same thing for the lining piece. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't want my top to be heavy. Okay, so I didn't put what is it called, interfacing on the lining. But when you're sewing, just go ahead and add interfacing to your lining. Okay, it will make your clothes come out even better than mine. All right, okay, so the next thing we're going to be doing now is to join the lining to the main fabric. Okay, and we're going to be starting with the neck. Do well to place your neck. Make sure it's relaxed on, that's right side facing the right side of your lining. Okay, make sure it's relaxed. Okay, make sure there is no and there's no material poking up and down and all of that. Just once you're done arranging it like this, you would go ahead and pin. Okay, so do well to pin this side before you go to your sewing machine, because this side can really shift and can make your neck look imbalanced. Okay, so when you're done pinning, the next thing is just to sew a straight line. You're going to sew with 1/2 inch or 0.25 depending on how many inch allowance you left on this side. Okay, so now I'm done sewing. The next thing I'm going to do is to notch. So be careful while notching this v-neck part so that you don't cut your thread, but also notch very close to the thread, but don't cut your thread. Okay, so you don't go back to sew it again. So be very careful while notching this side. Okay, so when you are done doing that, you are going to open it up and top stitch. You are going to top stitch with, you're going to push all the allowance inside to the lining part, and then top stitch very close to the seam that you've made before, and that's it, you're good. Okay, so I've gone ahead to top stitch like I'm showing you, and I've ironed it out. I went ahead to iron it out. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to trim the down part. Okay, at this moment the top and the lining, the fabric and the lining, they are the same length, but when you're sewing, you don't want it to be the same length. Okay, to avoid your lining showing under your clothes. But the first thing I'm going to be doing is to trim. So I've gone ahead to trim my fabric and my lining to make sure that they are straight. under. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to remove ½ inch. You can go ahead and remove up to 1 inch if you want, but I feel like ½ inch is going to be enough for what I'm doing. So you go ahead and remove ½ inch from the length of your lining, not your main fabric, the length of your lining. You go ahead and remove ½ inch from the length of your lining. You can also do this while you are still cutting the pieces. When you're cutting your lining, you make sure it is 1 inch or ½ inch shorter than the main fabric. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is to join the down part. Okay, so join the down parts, right side facing right side, of course. And then when you're done doing that, you might want to stop stitch if you want. So that one is totally optional if you want to stop stitch, but I'm going to make sure while you are doing this that the dart legs are aligning. Okay, this is going to help you when you're ironing it down. It's not going to be poking in one side and all of that. Okay, when I'm done doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to sew. And when I'm done sewing the down, I'm just going to go ahead and sew the two sides. Okay, and I'm going to be doing the same for the back. For the back, the first thing I'm going to do, even before I join any other place, I'm just going to first of all trim. Remember, we're not joining the neckline of the back. Okay, just the way we join the neckline of the front lining to fabric, we're not doing that for the back. So the first thing we're going to be doing for the back is to trim and then to remove ½ inch from the lining. Go ahead and remove ½ inch from the lining. Once you're done doing that, you just sew the down part of the back and sew the side of the back. Okay, so this is my pieces. I'm done sewing. And remember, I told you that I didn't want to add gum stay or any interfacing to my lining, but in the long run I decided to add. So I just did half of my top. So you can do it this way if you want to sew a clothes that you don't want to be heavy from too much interfacing. Okay, you can just, the part that is going to flay out, that part, just go ahead and pad it up with interfacing. Pad it up as much as you want. Now this interfacing that I use is just one layer and it's not sufficient. I can tell you now that I'm done sewing it that it's not sufficient. So pad up your interfacing. First of all, lining your put interfacing on your lining, and when you're done putting interfacing on your lining, go ahead and put another interfacing on it. When you are done, this down part is going to make your top to stand very well. And so what I did now is to notch and then notch the curvy sides, then turn it over to the front and iron. So I'm done ironing and this is what I have. See, it's already coming out. I see how beautiful it's looking. All right, so I'm placing the front, I'm placing the back piece on the front. So what I'm going to go ahead and do first, okay, is to join the back. Okay, mind you, I'm still going to add zip to this back, but for now, to help us just sew, you're going to sew up to 6 inches. You see the part that I marked straight, okay, is 6 inches. So you're going to stitch down and then you're going to top stitch there before you will now just use gather stitch and finish the remaining, because you're still going to open it up. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, so sew normal stitch up to this 6 inches and back stitch, and then sew gather stitch all the way down because you'll still open that side. All right, so the next thing we're going to be doing now is to join the neck. What would I call this now? The high neck. Okay, the neck extension or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I'm going to join it one right side facing the right side, but just make sure you join it in the seam. Okay, the joining seam, okay, is where you're also going to be joining. And then when you're joining this, you can join it with 0.25 inch, just a little stitch, but make sure it is a strong stitch that will not tear. Okay, so now I'm done joining it and our neckline is ready. Right, you can see it's already standing out and all of that. we're already done with this, as you can see. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to join the zip allowance that I sewed in. That's where I'm going to join to the stitch line along the neck region. Okay, and then I'm going to join it like this. Just go ahead and trace it all the way and then join it. When I was done joining, I saw I had an excess of 1/2 inch on both sides, and that's okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is to go ahead and join the sides. Now when you're joining the side, don't just follow the curve you made initially. Follow that curve you made initially. If you can see the way my own is curved out, it's not just straight from, it is curvy. Okay, so follow that curve so that the curve will come out when you are done ironing your clothes. So I've opened my stitches, my gather stitches that I made earlier. This is where I'm going to be placing my zip. Now watch how I'll place my zip. Okay, I want to be able to open this clothes from down up. So turn your zip upside down and stitch. Okay, it's very simple. Just turn your zip upside down and stitch so that you'll be able to open your dress from down, so that when you're wearing it, it won't be a struggle. Remember, we closed the upper part. That's why you are opening, you are making sure that the opening part of the zip is in the down part, so that it will be easy for you to wear. Now I'm done. I've even ironed it. Okay, look at the way it's already coming now. It's looking so good. So that excess of 1/2 inch that I have, I'm just going to trim it out. So if you have excess, once it's 1/2 inch, just go ahead and trim that. But if it is more than 1/2 inch, then you can check your zip allowance. If it's too much, if you took in too much or you took in too small for your zip allowance. Okay, so that's, once you adjust your zip allowance, it will be able to adjust, it will be able to align. Okay, now look at how I notched when I was done sewing. In order to iron, I notched the side a bit, just small. I notched it and then I pressed it open first. I pressed it open first before I turned it over to the front and then formed my curve. Are you seeing the way my curve is coming out? Okay, so notch the side a bit, not too much. Notch the side a bit, then iron it open, iron it flat, before you now start to iron the front part. Okay, I hope that really makes sense. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to cut our sleeve. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you the standard way to cut your puffy sleeve. If there is another way you cut your puffy sleeve, that's totally fine by me. Okay, so this is my own way. I come down by 3 inches. So I come down by 3 inches and mark. This is going to be the path for the puff. Okay, I'm going to continue my sleeve measurement down. So I'll now mark my sleeve length. The sleeve length I want it to have is 9 inches. So that's the what I'm marking right now. 9 inches is the sleeve length that I want the top to have. Okay, the sleeve to have. So I'm going to square out the line at 9 inches point. I'm just trying to make sure that my line is accurate. Does this happen to any other person? You double check and double check until you're sure your line is accurate. Okay, all right, so the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my biceps. So I'm going to come down by 4.5 inch. I usually come down by 4.5 inch for my biceps. So whatever is comfortable with you is fine, but 4.5 inch is quite standard. It works for most sizes. Okay, so I'm going to mark my armhole depth. This is the puff. Okay, like I mentioned before. So at this biceps, I'm going to mark my armhole length. That is your bust divided by 6 plus 2. Okay, and I'm going to add I added 1/2 inch ease and I added 2 inches sewing allowance. Did you notice that I marked my armhole plus 1/2 inch ease plus 2 inches sewing allowance, and I formed a diagonal line. I found the half of this diagonal line, the center point of this diagonal line, and then I'm going to find the center point of what I have now. Just watch closely, even if I'm not able to explain it very well. This is how I get my standard sleeve. Okay, and then I find the midpoint of that half that I've already gotten. Then I go up by 1/2 inch on that midpoint, and then on the other midpoint I come down by 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to form a curved line from the 3 points. and then I'm also going to form a curved line from the other points. This is how to get, in case you've been having issues on getting your curve for your sleeve, this is a very simple way to do it, and it works perfectly all the time. Okay, so I'm measuring my round sleeve, okay, plus 2 inches sewing allowance. Remember, we're using 2 inches sewing allowance, and I'm going to form a curve, okay, with my curve ruler. This is my short sleeve. This is very simple. Now for the puff sleeve, okay, I'm going to just form a puff, like a curve, and get it to that center that we used initially. That is going to be my puff. Like, this is just going to come out perfect for you if you use it. Very perfect. Okay, so now that I'm done doing that, my puff is going to reach this point. I'm going to notch this point, this center point, so that's where my puff is going to stop. Okay, I hope that was clear enough. Oh, I really hope I was able to explain it clearly enough, and you're able to do your puff sleeve anytime, anywhere. Okay, all right, so that's a bonus class for this for this particular dress. All right, so if you're new to this channel, welcome. This is how we are. We post sewing tutorials every week. Okay, so if you are a returning subscriber, we love you. You know that you are my sweetheart. All right, so for the sleeve, I've already cut the lining and the fabric. Okay, I'm just making sure that the lining is 1 inch smaller than the fabric. Okay, so I've cut this. Remember that we've already added the sewing allowance. I've already added the sewing allowance to this, so the next sewing allowance we added was just for the hemming, so this part I'm notching is that center point that I said I was going to notch, and this is where the gathers is going to stop. All right, so the next thing is going to be to place the lining front side on the fabric, front side facing the front side, and then go ahead and sew. If you notice, I made sure I interfaced my lining. Okay, this to make it firm. All right, now in order to form my puff, I'm using hand stitches. I'm just going to do some free stitches from the points that I notched to the other point. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the free stitches, and I'm done doing the free stitches, and I'll just go ahead and pull it together. As you can see, I've already formed my puff like this. My puff sleeve is ready. This is one of the easiest ways to make your puff sleeve. My puff sleeve is ready, and what I'm just going to do is to go ahead and attach it to the main dress. Okay, isn't it looking very beautiful? All right, so go ahead and attach this to the main fabric. So you can first of all sew out the joining allowance, but I prefer to attach to the main fabric first before I sew out my sewing allowance, my joining allowance. Okay, so I make sure that I place the center on the side. As you can see, how easy it is for you to fit into my armhole. Okay, so this is very easy. I hope you liked it. All right, so now I'm done with my top. I hope you really liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you've seen us for the first time, go ahead and subscribe and turn on your notification bell so that you'll be the first to be notified when I post another video. If you have any question, I'm right here in the comment section to answer all your questions. So bye for now. See you in my next video. Bye.